Namaskar. I will talk about Hindu calendar known as Panchang. But for that to explain, I will start with the existing calendar which is almost used world over, which is known as Gregorian calendar. Gregorian calendar has got 12 months starting from January, February up to December. Names of the month are absolutely arbitrary. Number of days per month are 30 or 31 and even lesser in the month of February, which again is arbitrary. And many people misunderstand it as a Christian calendar, probably because the Christmas and Natal come according to the Gregorian calendar. But one must also remember that Easter Sunday and Good Friday do not come as per the dates but come as per the days, and it has a relation with the full moon during the month of April. Hindu calendar is known as Panchang. Panchang, as it stands, Panchang means five parts. And the five parts are Tithi, which is corresponding to a date. When I say date, like in the Gregorian calendar, it means the date, month, and the year. The year in Hindu calendar is called Samvat. The pronunciation Samvat cannot be properly written in English, so it is made Samvat, but that's not the proper pronunciation. Second is Var, which is the day. Like we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in the Gregorian calendar. But the day in Hindu calendar starts with the sunrise and ends on the next sunrise. The third is Nakshatra, which we can say like the constellations. Fourth is the Karan, which is half of Nakshatra, and fifth is Yoga, which is uh, calculated based on the relative positioning of the sun and the moon. Overall, everything goes to the astronomical observations, so has a base of science in it. So we'll start with the day first. Now there are 7 days and seven names of seven planets are given according to the Hindu Panchang. Now, in reality, there are when one can notice the five planets, starting with Buddha, which is Mercury, closest to the Sun, then Venus or Shukra, and both these are internal planets, which means their orbits are inside the orbit of the Earth. And then there are three external planets like Mars or Mangal, followed by Jupiter, which is Guru or Brihaspati, and finally Saturn or Shani. So there are five planets. Moon is considered to be a planet as far as the astronomical calculations are concerned. Again, that makes it only six. But then one forgets that the Earth also is a planet. To represent the positioning of the Earth, the position of the Sun is used, and therefore the Sun is treated also as a planet. Knowing fully well that it is a star, it is not a planet, but Sun is basically the representative of Earth itself. Now, how the 7 days were named after these seven planets? So, the most important was the Sun itself. So, one starts with the Sun, which is Ravi. Ravi is one of the names of the Sun. The next one nearest to the earth is the moon. So the next one is moon, Somwar. That leaves 5 planets, 2 internal and 3 external. So they are taken alternatively, starting with Mars or Mangal, followed by Buddha or Mercury, then Guru or Jupiter or Brihaspati, Shukra or Venus, and finally Saturn or Shani. This is one way of the nomenclature. But when I was a child, I used to read a lot, and one of the places I had read another method which, which explained why the order is in this particular order which exists today. And what it said was, I mean, it gave the references, I don't remember the reference, but what it said was something really interesting. See, in Hindu astrology, I'll just deviate a bit only to explain this point. If we see these different planets, for every planet there is a stone specified. For example, if you talk about Venus, then it's diamond, Hira. If you talk about Mars, it is coral or Munga. So all 7 planets have 7 stones. Now, what that write up had said was these 7 stones for the 7 planets have their own different colors. But when you see the same stone through a prism, it reveals entirely different color. So they said you line up the stones in the order of the colors as per the colors of the rainbow. Now, most important thing, see the Western way of writing the colors of the rainbow is Vibgyor, starting with violet, whereas the Indian way, Hindu way, is exactly the opposite, starting with red. So it said you start writing from the red onwards up to violet, the colors as you see through the prism. And then the order of the stones will decide the order of the days. And that's how this Ravivar, Somvar, Mangalvar, up to Shanivar, the 7 names were given. I have not verified it. Those who are interested can do this experiment and confirm it or whatever, post their observations. But if you take in any manner, it had something to do with the astronomy, which is science. Now, if you see the month part, when we go to the date and month, lunar months were observed. Now, lunar month on an average is about 28 to 30 days. And if you see on a daily basis, you find that the 27 nakshatras are there. The sun is, the moon is in one particular nakshatra almost daily. It goes on changing from one nakshatra to another. And when I say moon in a particular nakshatra means as seen from the earth, that nakshatra appears behind the moon. So moon appears to be in the nakshatra. Nakshatra itself is either one star or a cluster of stars. It varies from nakshatra to nakshatra. What they had observed was sun also, as seen from the earth, sun also goes around through all those 27 nakshatra. And it takes 12 months, lunar months, to complete that one circle, which is actually the year. Now, 30 days a month, 12 months makes it 360 days. And that is how the ancient Hindu astronomers must have finalized 360 degrees as the degrees for calculation of the positions of very many different planets and other astronomical bodies. Now, as I said, that the day is measured from one sunrise to the next sunrise. Suppose during this one day there is no change of nakshatra for any one of the planets, how do you break down the timing? So, what they observed was, now the sun goes around the earth as seen from the earth in 12 lunar months. The 27 nakshatra they broke down into 12 rashis, each rashi having two and quarter nakshatra. So, as seen from the earth, the sun remained in one particular rashi for a period of about one lunar month. So every lunar month it was changing from one rashi to the next rashi. That is called Kranti or Sankranti. They also observed that after every 2.5 to 3 years, there is one particular lunar month during which time the sun does not change its Kranti. Now, this was an additional month, so they called it Adhik Masa. Like we have one day extra, 29th February for the leap year. In this particular case, the whole month was added as Adhik Mas. Now, how would they name it? Suppose you are in the month of Ashwin and the next month to come is Kartik. But the calculations show that in the next month, sun is not going to change Kranti, so it is Adhik Mas, so it becomes Adhik Kartik, followed by a Nija Kartik, means a regular Kartik. So that is how they made the calendar lunisolar. But like I said again, none of this could break down the time intervals during the day. So they observed that when the sun rises in the east in the morning, let's say the sun appears to be in the Cancer sign, zodiac sign Cancer, that is Karka Rashi. By noontime, the sun would have come to the top, which means the Cancer sign also would be into the top, and there would be a different Rashi at the eastern horizon. Next day morning, again, sun would be back at the eastern horizon in same Cancer sign. It means that during one day, the sun traveled through all 12 Rashis as seen from the earth. In today's terminology, you can say that means 12 Rashis for 24 hours, so about 2 hours per Rashi. But those days there were no clocks and watches, so no hours and minutes. So what the ancient Hindus did was, the time for which the sun remained in one Rashi, which was about 30 degrees, because 360 degrees is total for 12 Rashi, so one Rashi is 30 degrees. That they broke down into 5 segments. Each one was called a Ghatika. Again, in today's terminology, if 2 hours is 5 Ghatika, one Ghatika appears to be 24 minutes. Now, what was that Ghatika? Though there was a Ghatika Patra to measure the Ghatika. Now, we must have seen the sand clocks, they called hour clocks also. The sand falls from the top portion to the bottom portion, takes 1 hour for the hour clock. Then you turn it around and again it takes another hour. That's how you keep on measuring. But the timing then measured originally by the Hindu scholars was Ghatika, which was approximately 24 minutes. Now, each Ghatika they broke down into 60 kala, which was also called Pala. This Pala word is in many Indian languages. In Hindi, there are very many songs, Palbhar and all that kind. So it is that Pal which is 60 Pal is one Ghatika, 5 Ghatika is one Rashi or 2 hours. So you can work out. But it didn't stop there. One Kala or one Pal was 60 Vikala. So the breaking of time was much lesser than second itself. Now, how were the months named? Looking from the earth, when you see sun in say Chitra Nakshatra, which means the Nakshatra Chitra is behind the sun, making it appear that sun is in Chitra Nakshatra, then that lunar month was named Chaitra. When sun is in Vishakha, the month was named Vaishak. Sun in Jeshta, month was named Jeshta, and likewise. So if you see all names of the uh, months, the calculations, everything was purely scientific based on astronomy. The Hindus were using the nature's calendar. The months were measured in two different manners. One method was first day after Amavasya, no moon day, to next no moon day, Amavasya. This method is called Amanta, whereas the second method was one day after full moon day, Paurnima, to the next full moon day. And that method is called Purnamanta. The first day after no moon day, Amavasya, or full moon day, Paurnima, was called Pratipada. But the month was divided into two parts. The first part, starting with the first day after Amavasya up to Purnima, was known as or is known as Shukla Paksha or Shuddha Paksha, and one day after Purnima to Amavasya is called Krishna Paksha or Vadya Paksha. First day in both cases, as I said, was Pratipada, 14th day was Chaturdashi, and in between the name there are names existing for every different day. Only the difference was one was Shukla Pratipada, the other was Krishna Pratipada. If we see the Vikram Samvat and Shalivan Chake, these are the two calendars which are being used currently. Both have everything identical except the first day of the new year. Shalivan Chake has Chaitra Shukla Pratipada as the first day of the year. Vikram Samvat has got Kartik Shukla Pratipada as the first day of the year. Personally, I believe that because the Shukla Pratipada being the first day of the year, it has to be the first day of the month also. So the new month should actually start from first day after Amavasya, which is the Amanta way of following. Possibly the second method, Purnamanta, must have come into existence after the invaders had arrived in India. Now, these are sufficient things that were required to be noted down to uh, write any event, details of any event that must have taken place. Just to give you an example, suppose a child was born, then the details of every planet and the rashis or nakshatras that they were found in as seen from the earth, along with the rashi which existed at the eastern horizon, which is called Lagna Rashi or ascendant in English, would give the exact time for the birth of the child. Location was specified, so uh, uh, almost everything that is required. Today, what we do is we write day, date, time, and the location. But to make a note of all these details, they devised a novel method of representation, which today we call Kundali or horoscope. Now it has 12 Rashis, 12 houses showing 12 Rashis. The first house represents the sign which is at the eastern horizon when that event occurred. A child is born at the time of birth, whichever was the Rashi at the eastern horizon is called Lagna Rashi, that is in the first house. And then every other planet, whichever Rashi it belonged to, is positioned accordingly in the respective houses. Though they had imagined that movement of the sun is like a cow moving in the sky, so they called it a Gochar movement. So at any given time, the movement, the position of planets and the stars as are seen are called Gochar movement. When a child is born, the Gochar at that specific time is noted down, which becomes its Kundali or horoscope. Someone must have had a curiosity to study what happens after few months, years, when the Gochar position is different than the one which was present when the child was born. That is when the astrology must have been born. They must have realized that not only the movements of the planets which are essential, but there are some other factors which had the importance. And that possibly that's when they must have added the Karan, which is half of nakshatra, and yoga, which is relative movement of sun and moon as seen from the earth. Different yogas are named differently. Some are good, auspicious, some are not so good. Uh, every time when they were finding some incidents in the child's life, a good one or a bad one, they would check it with the corresponding positioning of the planets. Now, how was it done if one wants to understand? See, let's consider only three planets, including the sun. The sun itself, the earth, and the Jupiter. Jupiter is the largest planet. Now, if they are in the same line, then there are two positions. First, when Earth and Jupiter are on the same side of the Sun, which means Jupiter is behind the Earth when Earth faces the Sun. And second is Jupiter is behind the Sun, that's in the other side, 180 degrees apart. Obviously, the gravitational forces for the Jupiter acting on the surface of the Earth would differ. Now, how did it matter? It appears that ancient Hindus knew too many things. They had found that it is the moon's gravitational force which acts on the surface of the earth, which can be seen through the movement of sea and ocean water, where the high tide and low tide is created. But that doesn't mean that if the size of the water collected is small, say there is a large lake, when the moon passes above it, scientifically there has to be similar movement of creating high and low tides. One may not see it, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And to extend the same argument, even if it's a small pond, there has to be the effect of moon's gravitational force on that water. Human body consists of 70% of water. Evidently, there has to be some effect of moon's gravitational force on human body. And that water mostly is available as blood, which keeps on circulating. So whenever it passes through brain and there is difference in the circulation, there could be a difference in behavior of a person. That's how they might have correlated. And the extension of the argument was that if it happens with the moon, why it shouldn't be happening for rest of the planets? And that's how they must have brought in the effect of rest of the gravitational force of rest of the planets. Now, if we see the two internal planets like the Jupiter, Mercury, the Buddha, or Venus, Shukra, they are always between the sun. They're always on the same side of the sun. I mean, same side where the sun exists. Either they are in front of the sun or behind the sun, but they are on the same side. Whereas the other three planets, the Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, they're either on one side of the Earth, which is behind the Earth, both facing the sun, or they are behind the sun, which is opposite side of the sun. And so the effect of gravitational force would differ. Simple fact was that whichever is opposite you, it will have a specific effect. Now, in the Kundali or horoscope, every house was covering 30 degrees. So, opposite means 180 degrees, which was going into the seventh house. So, they mentioned that whenever the planet is in the seventh house, it will have certain effect. Now, I believe that here there must have been bifurcation. One group which was purely interested in study of astronomy and making the Panchang, and the other group which wanted to find the effect of planets on human life. The second group which wanted to study only the effect of planets on human life, which today we call astrology, was not interested in details of mathematical calculation. They wanted very simple terminology. So when the planet is 180 degrees away, it was in seventh house. Instead of saying 180 degrees away, they simply said the planet has got seventh drishti, that is the sight or line of sight, to indicate the the gravitational force which may be acting and the effect of it. Evidently, all seven planets had seventh drishti. But they also found that the external planets like Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn had some additional drishtis, which means when they were at particular angle, they had some kind of noticeable gravitational effect in the behavioral pattern of the human beings. So they denoted extra drushti for those. Today, people, when they come to know about drushti, they don't want to go back into the details to find out what drushti is. They just want to ridicule. Another thing they ridicule is really foolish, in my opinion. I may be wrong. But when I explain it to you, you will also realize, or those who think on that line also will realize that yes, it was foolish. People ask, with the naked eye, how could anyone see the stars and planets so clearly? Now, let us take one simple example of Ramayana, which is said to have Ram Ravan war is said to have taken place is 12,209 BCE, about 14,000 plus, so 14, 15,000 years ago. What was the condition then? There were no vehicle, there was no pollution. There were a lot many thick forest, Dandakaranya, Nimisharanya, and with almost negligible pollution. And whatever small pollution might have been there, the forests were taking care of it to clean the air as early as possible. The visibility must have been extremely well. It was no wonder that people would have seen it with the naked eye. With today's condition and today's pollution level, we can't judge what must have been condition then and ridicule it. Last year, people in Delhi during the first lockdown, end of first lockdown, had posted, some of them had posted photographs on social media saying that this is a photo from my terrace and look, I can see these monuments which I never have seen in my lifetime because of the pollution. If that is the case of effect of 3 weeks lockdown, we are talking about 15,000 years with no pollution. It must have been crystal clear. They must have been in a position to observe each and every movement of the stars and the planets and whatever. So, in my opinion, it was astrology which made the astronomy people to look for certain things, and that is how the yoga were introduced to make the Panchang of five parts. But it doesn't end there. They must have realized that in spite of all this, the predictions were not falling in line. And then the joint team might have done some work which must have yielded success. They ultimately found 2 points in the sky, imaginary points in the sky, which were the cross sections of the orbit of the Earth around the Sun and orbit of Moon around the Earth. Where they cross each other, those 2 points became very important. They are called Chaya Graha. Those are the imaginary points which are treated like planets. The upper one is called Rahu or dragon's head according to Western nomenclature. Lower one is called Ketu, dragon's tail. And a story was made up that yes, it was Rahu. He tried to drink Amrut nectar, and before he could gulp it down, his head was chopped off. So the head became immortal and remained in the sky. Body fell down, headless body fell down, and that became Ketu. So you know that the upper one is Rahu and the lower one is Ketu. Those simple terminologies were used. Now, After explaining all this, one would realize there's no religion brought in, there is no God brought in. It's purely a scientific method of recording time. That is a calendar. So that's what all I have to say. Thank you for listening. Jai Hind.